Apparently, we were having some sound issues. Now we're good. Um, so if you watched News Nation tonight, you know why we're here. There was a lot of updates regarding Riley Strain tonight. A lot of big bombshells that were dropped, right? Normally, when I start these shows, we do a little bit of self promotion, and I'm just too excited to jump into this. So I'm going to mostly skip that, and I'm just going to say, look, if y'all are following me, you know that I've written 2 books. I would say that specifically the new one, Surprise RK Secrets or Not. One of the videos I said today, if you have kids, get this book. Help teach your kids that, you know, they shouldn't be keeping secrets. Adults shouldn't be asking them to keep secrets. And what I said in the video is I don't want to do a true crime video on anybody's child. So this is a resource to help y'all get it. The other thing that I will say, if you are one of the people watching on TikTok and you don't follow me, hit that follow button. But if you are here on YouTube and you are one of my new YouTube people, please hit that subscribe button. I am trying to grow this channel, and it would really mean a lot to me. So let's just jump right into it now that I've gotten through all of that stuff. And by the way, if you want to get to any of that stuff, website justinontiktok.com, or you can order the books through the TikTok shop. So the first thing that they kind of started out with was a little bit more of a tighter timeline than what we've had up until this point. And I'm going to go ahead and put a map up here on the screen for y'all to see. I went ahead and pinned it out. I couldn't find what they had, but this is the area of the bars that he went to, that Riley Strain went to that night. And even though we don't have necessarily a timeline of what times he was at those specific bars, what we do know is he started out. In fact, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for y'all. I know it's kind of small. Give me 1 second. I want to see if I can zoom in on this view. Give me one. Let's see. We go a little bit further. Yeah, so that. Okay, that's a little bit better. So you can see up here toward the top, kind of right, you see that little circle. It says Miranda Lambert's. Right here. Hopefully you guys can see my pointer. From there, he went to Garth Brooks Bar, which is the Friends in Low Places bar in Honky Tonk. So he went from here over to here, not even a block away, maybe about a block. And then from there, he went to Kid Rock's Honky Tonk. Sorry, that's just popping up, which is right here. And then right across the street, same side of the street, is Luke's 32 Bridge. So he kind of didn't go in the best order, but that's what he went to. We also learned tonight he wasn't at Luke's very long. Apparently, he arrived there around 9:15 p.m. And by 9:36, he was kicked out. He was there for a total of 21 minutes. That's it. We're going to leave this up while we talk about this. Basically, what I don't know where I want to go with this next. There's just so much here. Let me talk a little bit more about Luke's first. There are 150 cameras in Luke's. 150. That's an insane amount of security cameras. On top of that, earlier in the evening, what we do know is it wasn't at Luke's bar, but apparently there was a text message between Riley and his mom where he had got a rum and coke. And he texted his mom and said there was something that basically the rum and coke didn't taste right, that there was something kind of off with it, and it tasted like barbecue. And his mom said, "Well, that sounds pretty bad. You shouldn't drink it." He goes, "Well, it's actually," and he was kind of joking around. At least I think he was. And he was like, "Well, it actually sounds good, but it's not." So he says not to drink it. I don't know whether he did or he didn't. Um, but he eventually gets it to Luke's, and there we learn that he's had one beer, so not even a cocktail, a beer. We learned that he would have paid a cover to get into Luke's, and he had two waters, and then he left. So here's what I kind of want to say about this before we go further. If y'all have heard me talking about this, you've seen other creators talking about Luke's and everything that's been going on. One thing that you know is that a lot of people apparently experience some type of issue with things being put in their drinks at a lot of these bars in Nashville. Men, women, doesn't matter. I've heard stories that sometimes bartenders do it if you don't tip well or because somebody doesn't like you. Some people might be doing it to try to basically do something to tourists. I can tell you that by somebody who lives in Nashville, a lot of the locals, a lot of the natives, people who have been here their entire lives are not happy with the shift in Nashville, don't like the tourism, don't like everything that's coming in. So I know that you have that animosity there. I'm not saying that anybody's doing it for that reason. I'm just saying that is something that is very well known. But now he's missing. He leaves Luke's and he's missing. And one thing that I've addressed before that I definitely want to make sure that we address again is a lot of women follow true crime. And so when you see these stories, one thing that seems to really stand out to me is a lot of women come on and say, his brothers let him leave alone. I can't believe his brothers let him leave alone. Never leave a man behind. And that is when you're looking at it through the lens of a woman. And unfortunately, there is a male privilege. I'm just going to say it as what it is. When I get to a parking lot, I don't have to look around. When I went looking and walking the route that Riley Strain went to, I wasn't worried at all. My wife wouldn't have done that. When women go to the bars, you guys have to be safe. There's safety in numbers. There's always a buddy system. You guys know where people go. We don't do that because we have that privilege. And there were many times, and I've said this many times before, that when I was in college, I would get drunk and I would walk home from a bar, sometimes a mile, sometimes more. And my friends would just be like, all right, see you later. You sure you got this? Yeah, I'm fine. I'll see you later. So from that respect, in that regard, I'm not mad at the fraternity brothers. And don't worry, we're going to be coming back to the fraternity brothers because I have a lot to say and I'm going to be a little fired up about it because I've had some people reach out to me defending the fraternity, defending actions. I've seen them in the comments. And what we learned tonight and what we've learned in the past few weeks since this, but especially tonight, is absolutely abhorrent. Okay. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But first, let's talk about the family getting down there. Okay. The family gets down from Missouri to Nashville. And they see a few of the fraternity brothers standing outside talking to the police, taking a report, whatever the case is, right? The family then goes and starts speaking to the police, and they. I told him, I'm sorry. Phone calls, guys. So the family starts talking to the police, and the guys go off, and they get ready for their formal. Their brother is missing, but they go get ready for their formal, and off they go. Off they go for the party. While they're at that party, mom and dad, the family, step parents, are calling and searching hospitals looking for Riley. While these brothers are out having just a grand old time, having a grand old time. They're out partying. A few hours later, they get back from the formal. Parents are sitting in the truck. They wave to them. Hey, guys, how's it going? And go back in. Their brother, Riley's a senior. He's an upperclassman. He's been a brother probably for 3-4 years of this fraternity. And his brothers, who a lot of people are wanting to defend, went and partied. And then the next day they got in their buses and they went home. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, let's talk about law enforcement. Apparently, this is no longer a state let me rephrase that. A local investigation. There is no more local investigation going on. That is closed. And apparently, there is a state investigation going on now regard to Riley Strain. And the family has said that whenever they start to get somewhere, as far as information goes, they seem to hit roadblocks. And so I'm going to say a couple things about this and about law enforcement here in Tennessee. Okay. First, as a lot of y'all know, this state, this city in particular, but this state in general has been in the news a lot for missing people. We had Riley Strain. We have currently Sebastian Rogers. There's another girl, Alexandria Chapman, who just went missing last Friday in Memphis. You have Summer Wells, who has been missing. It'll be 3 years in June. John Clyde, Adriana Wicks, Jennifer Wicks. And there are actually so much more. That is just Layla Santinello. These are all off the top of my head. Holland Snap. And there's no answers, no evidence for any of these people. None. And people don't just vanish. It's just like they don't care. It's a lot of people. And so my first thing is, personally, as a resident of this state, I am not overly excited or confident that it's going to result in anything productive at this point. Another example I'll give is the Covenant school shooting. We had that happen about a year ago, and we knew that there was a manifesto when that happened. And locally, you heard things about it, rumblings about it right after. And after about 3-4-ish months, all went away. Manifesto was never released. But there are rumors as to what could be in that manifesto. Abuse that the school, the Covenant school, and subsequently the church associated with it might have orchestrated. But they don't want that out because it's an affluent area. And so I'm just saying that now you have a case that went incredibly viral, national news. They want this to go away. And as they were talking about on News Nation tonight, you have a city that relies heavily on tourism. You have a fraternity that has kind of a PR problem, right? They kind of have a little bit of a PR problem. Because Riley with Delta Chi is not the only scar that they have. There are actually several, but if y'all remember a couple of weeks ago, we did an interview with a gentleman by the name of Eric Oakes. His son, Adam, at the age of 19, his first night as a pledge, a Delta Chi fraternity in Virginia, not the same one that Riley was part of, different chapter, killed him. His first night as a pledge. Partied over him while he was dying. So there's a lot of reason for them not to want to talk. Then you have the college. Then, again, Nashville doesn't want to do any of this. And plus, it's making police not look the best because the police didn't find Riley. Police didn't find the bank card. Social media did. Social media didn't find Riley. A barge worker did. But that's beside the point. Police didn't. And I can tell you that I was standing down there the night that they did that vigil where Chris Dingman, who, by the way, I'm going to try to get on this show Probably and hopefully this week. He is Riley Strain's family spokesperson. I'm going to reach out to him tomorrow and see if we can get some more information, especially with all this coming on. But he was sitting there talking to myself and a few other social media creators, very appreciative of what we put through. And I'm not sitting here to say that because we're tooting our own horns. I'm sitting here to say that the police were standing right behind him and you could hear the eye rolls because it made them look bad. And I can tell you that the day that I went down to Nashville and did the walkthrough of the route that we knew Riley took and where he disappeared, when I was down there, I had assumed it had already been searched because it was a couple days later, and there were really not any police down there. Now, when I say really not any, there were four. They were standing under a bridge. I videoed the walk and then I did a live, and I was live down there for probably an hour. And in that hour time, I watched them stand as a group of four under a bridge, talk, and then disperse, leave. There was no searching. There was no crime tape up. There was nothing that indicated that they were looking in this area or were concerned about this young man at all. Incredibly frustrating. And again, my naive self assumed that they had already searched. Now, law enforcement is still holding, this goes with everything that I just said, is still holding that this was an accident. This was an accidental death. Well, it seems that the parents aren't fully convinced of that. They said if this was an accident, show us proof that it was an accident. Now, when this whole thing started, if you were following me during the beginning of Riley's strain, I try to be very pragmatic. I try not to spread rumors or speculation. And to me, the most logical explanation was not a sensationalized explanation. The most logical explanation was that he was inebriated under the influence and he fell into the river at some point. And by inebriated, I also thought based on the the set of videos that we saw where he ran into the sign, to me that looked like somebody who had some type of substance more than alcohol in their system. Okay. And when I was speaking to one of the fraternity brothers at that time, he said, "Hey, I've partied with Riley. This is not how he acts when he drinks." His parents said something along the same lines during it. This is not how he acts when he drinks. So I'm still very anxious to see and hear toxicology results on this to kind of see what comes back if there was anything in his system. But law enforcement is still holding that it's an accident. And again, I think that that goes through, you know, with everything that we've said, with them wanting this to not be a PR nightmare, which it already is. And the less that you talk about it, the more you make it go away, the better it is. So now I want to go back and talk about the fraternity real quick. So I think I talked about some, so I'm just going through my notes here real quick. The family also feels that the fraternity brothers know more than what they know. And the mom wants to know everything. Let me kind of share something with you as somebody who has dealt with the families of victims of missing people, of people who have been murdered, publicly murdered. A lot of times, vengeance, revenge, justice comes secondary to answers. A lot of these families want more answers than anything else. Okay. And a really very famous recent case, cold case that's finally been solved, where answers were more important than justice and prison time, was Beth Holloway, the mother of Natalie Holloway. They got Jorn Vandersloot extradited here just so she could finally know what happened. That is how these families are able to move on. Jorn Vandersloot technically got a sentence that's going to run concurrent with his Peruvian sentence, run out prior to his Peruvian sentence. So he will not have to be responsible here in America for anything that happened to him, for him or to Natalie during the entire situation. She wanted answers. Riley's mom wants answers. She wants to know what happened. And I know that for a lot of people, it sounds that it's weird, but that's what they need. They need that to heal. And when I say heal, you notice I'm saying heal and not closure, because when it comes to your child, there will never be closure. You will never fully heal. And that was told to me firsthand by Joe Petito. I am very fortunate in the fact that I don't have to know the pain that these parents have endured. And I hope that I never do. But that hole will always be there. But these answers are important. And this fraternity is not giving them answers. These were supposed to be his brothers. Now, I want to go back and talk about something that we had mentioned earlier. I think at least I think I did because I'm kind of all over the place. I know I'm just there's so much here about the hallways and the hand. Um, the fact that at 3 a.m, doors were slamming, a lot of commotion over a fraternity brother with a hurt hand. Okay. That is what the commotion was. It wasn't about Riley missing. They were getting emotional about one of the brothers hurting its hand. And I'm not sitting here saying that I believe that the fraternity was physically involved with Riley's disappearance. I don't think that I believe that. I think that the only thing that the fraternity is guilty of is not looking for their friend, their brother, partying while he's missing, and then getting back on a bus and going home. Now, if you want to believe that this person, brother, whoever, who had a hurt hand and they were freaking out because of the reason he hurt his hand, well, then I can't help it if that's the way y'all think on it. And I would be lying if I said the thought that's going through y'all's mind isn't going through mine as well. I'm not saying that that makes it true. I'm just saying that it doesn't make it untrue. But I don't understand why these fraternity brothers would just clam up. And again, I've talked about this in these past weeks, and I've seen people's responses to it. One of the responses, oh, well, they're young and they're kids and they're this and they're that, and they might not know better. They're going through the instructions of the fraternity. They're doing this and that. I can safely say at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, if I was in a fraternity, which I was in a fraternity at one point, if I was in a fraternity and a brother or a friend or somebody went missing and my fraternity told me not to say anything, I'd be like, nah, bruh, that's sus. F that. I'm going to go talk. Because what are you trying to hide? The liability there that might be there if you're talking about somebody who's not been involved, no brothers were involved in the disappearance, then the only liability that could possibly be there is the fact that he was there for a fraternity event, which means that's already public knowledge. There's nothing illegal or liable about not searching. It sucks. It's a bad look. It's apathetic, but there's nothing illegal about it. You're not going to go to jail. There's nothing criminal about not searching for somebody. Just means you're, a jerk. You didn't go search for your friend. But the fraternity is going to lawyer up, and that's going to come up from the national chapter. But all the brothers are being quiet. There is no fraternity, there's no organization out there that is worth keeping answers from a mom, from preventing a mom to have answers about what happened to her kid. And I will say at this point, they're so young, they might not realize what that means because they don't have kids, they're young, whatever. But that means everything to Michelle is knowing that information. My friend Dan Catullo's in here. Dan does a lot of things with fraternities. We've had a lot of videos. And in fact, if you're on YouTube, I would encourage you to go back and look at some of the videos that Daniel and I have done together, because he really knows his stuff. And they're also very fascinating videos. And he's saying that he can tell countless stories. And he's a good source for this. So I believe it. I'm going to put it up here. I can tell you countless stories of frat brothers drugging people and even drugging each other as jokes. It's not uncommon. And I would believe that. Because what they think is okay is not okay. It's bad decisions. It's poor judgment. Now, apparently, they also talked about the fraternity brothers coming to the funeral. They did show up to Riley's funeral. They did. They were bussed in. They were chaperoned, and they left. It almost feels like an obligation. I'm glad that they showed up. And whether it was an obligation or it wasn't, I'm glad that they showed up. It was literally the least they could have done. The least they could have done was show up. But then the parents can't get answers. The parents are begging for answers. They're begging for this fraternity to come forward and tell them anything so they can have some type of answers, something to help know what's happening. If this was an accidental death, then let them know that. If it wasn't, let them know that. It doesn't mean that you're going to be held criminally liable. It makes no sense. They also did a memorial on campus about a week ago, about a week after the funeral. It was put out on the Mizzou Delta Chi fraternity page, I think on their X or Insta. I can't remember which. It was very last minute, like you had maybe 24 hours. My understanding is the family wasn't invited. I know that somebody was planning to show up and just kind of observe, not happy with the fraternity. But they weren't able to make it. They had prior obligations. That being said, I've had countless people come into my comments when I talk about Riley getting on to me about bashing the fraternity. And I don't care. Even the fraternity brother that I had been talking to during it, at one point went on spring break while this brother was missing. It's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. And that's really where I struggle with this because, people in the comments are like, or even have messaged me directly, oh, the mom's not mad at the fraternity. The family's not mad at the fraternity. They came and gave a hug. They're not mad. Well, apparently that is not true. And that was proven tonight. And to be quite frank with you, I've known that for quite a while, but I've not been at liberty to say, because again, sometimes these families will share things with me and I know what I'm allowed to talk about and I know what I'm not allowed to talk about. And until this came out, wasn't allowed to talk about it. I'm not saying that I knew what they knew tonight, what was exposed, but I knew that there were challenges with the family and the fraternity. And when people are sitting there saying, the mom has no beef with the fraternity, she looks at them as second sons to her. No, she didn't. I think at the very beginning, she was trying to save face. I think at the very beginning, she was trying to get answers and hope that they were going to do the right thing, but they didn't. And that was proven multiple times. They had multiple opportunities to do the right thing, and they didn't. I never met Riley Strain. I've never met any of these people. And I searched longer for Riley Strain than his fraternity brothers did. Dan Catullo's in here. He searched longer for Riley Strain. Flew in from California, was here because of the fraternity stuff. Searched longer for Riley Strain than his own fraternity brothers from halfway across, well, more than halfway across the country. So if they didn't do anything wrong, if they didn't slip him anything in his drink, if they didn't do something that ultimately caused his demise, then there is no reason for them not to be talking. But these fraternities do such an amazing job. And we really need to get Dan back on here, maybe tomorrow night. We really need to get Dan back on here to kind of talk about this. But fraternities do a great job of buttoning everything up. They have this down to a system. Starts at the top, rolls down to the chapters. They're instructed what to do. Lawyers are brought in. And they clam up. Sorry, guys, getting over this thing. This cough won't go away. They also have insurance for these types of events. And I learned this through Dan, that the insurance is self-insured and they just pay the max limit and they move on. They pay the max limit and move on for every one of these events. That's what I got. This is a lot of updates, and I think there's going to be more that comes out of it. We're still waiting for toxicology, and I, no matter how you think about it, whether you think it's accidental or not, the things that you can't ignore, all right, are the fact that he didn't have water in his lungs. The things that you can't ignore, the fact that his boots were missing, his pants were missing, which were held on with a belt that were supposedly above his hips, tightly above his hips. Bones, not skin that could flex. Bones don't flex. Those come off, but his underwear is still on. I find that very strange because if any of y'all have boots, and he had Justin boots, they're quality boots. I have a pair of Justin boots. They're quality boots. They're not that easy to get on. They're not that easy to get off. Wet leather is hard to get off. Wet denim, especially held on with a belt, is hard to get off. but then boxer shorts, underwear stays on. It doesn't make sense. But there's a big problem with fraternities in this country, and that is a different discussion for a different night, something that Dan Catullo and I have had a conversation about, and I feel we need to have a second one in light of all of this. But it's a real problem, and there's no accountability from them. They shut up, they pay out if they have to, and they move on till it happens again. Every time. I learned from some of my Australian followers and even some people overseas that apparently fraternities aren't really a thing in a lot of other countries. But we have such this admiration or kind of bubble around this Greek life thing, and I don't understand it. Like I said, I went to college, I was in a fraternity. I was a teak, which is Tau Kappa Epsilon. I resigned my fraternity early because I saw the brotherhood for what it really was, which was not brotherhood, in my opinion. That was my experience. You or your kids had different experience. Great. Mine wasn't. But it's all very weird. The family wants answers. All of y'all want answers. I'm curious to see what comes back with toxicology. But that's it. That's the updates. The other thing that I want to talk about real quick, because I think this is important, and I did mention this earlier today, but I feel like it's worth bringing this up again in regard to the bars and keeping the substances out of drinks. And all I'm trying to think, the way we can word this stuff to keep the social media gods happy, we have to be very careful, but you guys get what I'm saying. When all of this was first going on, I had put this thing together. I'm going to show it to y'all real quick, and you can get to this again by going to my website, Justin on TikTok. I'm scrolling down to my Amazon storefront, and it says women's safety kit, but it doesn't have. I need to rename it. That wasn't inclusive of me. But there are a couple things I want to point out here that y'all can do. And I put this together because y'all asked me to. If you go out and drink, if you party, if you have kids, there are a couple things I want to point out. The first thing here is this Phil Medi G-Checks. This is a sticker. It's very small. You can put it on the back of your cell phone. It comes in a pack of I forget how many. And you just take a drop from the drink, put it on it, a drop. You can be very inconspicuous about it, and it will change colors if that drink has been drugged. This thing over here, this nightcap, it acts as a scrunchie, but also a drink cover. But this thing down here, this air tag holder that clips inside your clothes. I put the air tags up here too for easy, but this clips inside your clothes. While I was reading about it, inside your skirt, your pants pockets, on a bra, whatever, under the arm of your shirt. So people can't see it. So if something happens to somebody, there's an incident that happens to you, you'll still know, or people will still be able to track you because of this. In fact, I have ordered these for my 4-year-old for when we go out places because, kids and stuff like that. And it's going to go inside our clothes. That can be reused. So I put this together. There's also a couple stun guns, stuff like that. This one has pepper spray and stun gun. So that's pretty cool. But I put this together because a lot of y'all asked me to, just so y'all are aware. Again, go to my thing. Just on TikTok.com, scroll down to the Amazon storefront. Now, I love Dan. Dan is one of my new favorite people. We met during this case, and he's just an incredible wealth of knowledge. He does documentaries. One of his side projects regarding documentaries is things on fraternities and exposing a lot of the behaviors of fraternities. We watched one with Eric Oakes on Adam Oakes' Death of a Pledge. He's got Breathe, Nolan, Breathe. He's got another one coming out soon that's going to be streaming on one of the major platforms called Protect the House. And he works with these families. He does it pro bono. He uses his contacts, everything, to get their stories out there, amplify the voices. And any money that's earned from this goes back to the families or goes back to organizations to help fight this type of stuff so it doesn't happen to others. And what he said here in this comment is Delta Chi should come on here with us, Justin, and tell us their side of the story. And Dan's right. And the thing is that we have offered them that. We have offered specifically, I'm talking to you, Delta Chi, because I know you watched this because we saw what happened on the national webpage after we talked about y'all. The day after, we invited you to come on here. You didn't respond. not to ambush you, not to attack you, just to talk about reform, to talk about the fact that you have two now pretty national stories about brothers that like one of them life was taken by the fraternity brothers, and the other one likely wasn't, probably, but was there, but it was still an event, Delta Chi. And talk about reform, but you don't want to do that. You met us with silence. You can do it on an even playing field. We'll do it on the platform. People can ask questions. So if you want to do it, have my email. You have Dan's email. We'll come on here and talk to you about it. Because what's going on in the fraternity life and Greek life, specifically with fraternities, needs to change because there's a lot of this. And what a lot of y'all don't see that I'm now seeing because of becoming friends with Dan, there was just last week another fraternity incident with another, not Delta Chi, but another fraternity. It happens so much that you don't even know. And so we got to expose that and we have to change it. And you want to know something? Sororities don't have these same issues. They do have issues. There is abuse there. Their hazing processes aren't good. They're definitely abusive. And I also asked Dan, do historically black fraternities have these issues? He said, not really. So this goes to the larger, more mainstream, if you would, fraternities. And so I'm inviting any of them. It doesn't have to be Delta Chi. Any of y'all who run these national chapters, if you want to come on here and talk to us, let's have a dialogue without attacking. Let's try to do something to protect these kids because they are still kids, whether they're 18 to 22, frontal lobe isn't fully developed. They're still kids. So come on here. Let's have a conversation. It'll be fair. And that's what I have. They won't, though. They won't. I'll fall off a chair if one of them actually reaches out. Absolutely. You know what's going to be met with? I got all this new stuff now, right? So this is what's going to be met with. That's what happens when you email them. So, yeah. That's what I got for y'all. Anyways, hope you guys have a good night. Definitely drop your thoughts in the comments. If you are somebody who wants to help affect change with these fraternities, I really encourage you to follow me on TikTok, follow me here. Go follow Dan Catullo. He's DC3 director here. Dan, I think you're Dan Catullo, Daniel Catullo on TikTok. He is somebody very good to follow. He's using his time, his influences, and I'm just going to call him out. He is literally a Hollywood director, producer, writer. He does documentaries for a living, and he's damn good at it. Go watch his stuff. Go find his stuff on here and watch it. It is eye-opening. And we need to change this. This can't go on. This type of mentality and actions or inaction, I should say, that's been going on for decades can't go on the way it's been. Too many kids have died unnecessarily because of it. With that, I'll get off my soapbox for tonight. I will see you all tomorrow, and y'all have a good one.